Hello, everyone, and thank you all for your attention. I almost forget to plug in microphone. Not almost, I did forget to do this before stream starts. It is always nerve-breaking, dear friends. No matter how many live streams I have done before, every live stream is somewhat unique, and it takes nerves and emotions. But anyways, and sometimes I might lose focus. It happens. After all, we are humans, isn't it? Not supercomputers of sort. Anyways, thank you all, dear friends, for joining this stream, and greetings to all of you, and to all the members of our community who will join later on this stream or will watch video afterwards. Hopefully you have a good day. It is 11 o'clock in the morning here in sunny Moscow. And well, before I start, dear friends, let me mention, if I may, that there was one question that I received through Patreon from Patreon member, and I will answer to that question after news segment. Unfortunately, there was no more questions or the comments to highlight during the stream. If there will be during the day any questions or comments that I might receive through support platforms, PayPal, Boosty, or any other, then of course I will react on those questions or comments during the evening news update today. That will start at 7 o'clock Moscow time, 7 p.m. Moscow time. And yes, what else? It takes a couple of minutes when a live stream starts before YouTube will send a notification to members of our community, at least 1 or 2% of the members. So it is always better to take your time once stream starts for these few minutes. But anyways, also, of course, dear friends, if there will be a super chat on Rumble during the stream, which is called Rant on Rumble, then I will react on that after news segment. And well, that's being said, let's go through some news now. And well, plenty of important developments, obviously. And I will start with this report from RIA Novosti that air defense forces on duty intercepted 105 Ukrainian drones overnight over the different regions of the Russian Federation. Let's go through some details. And this topic of drone attacks last 24 to 48 hours definitely is one of the topics that is discussed in the media and in the public, because it seems like Kyiv regime is, with the assistance of NATO countries, are launching these waves of drones without a stop. But anyways, let's go through details here. Russian air defense systems on duty shut down more than 100 Ukrainian drones over Russian regions at night, the defense ministry reported. We have a quote from a statement on May 22nd from 12 at night up to 5:30 in the morning Moscow time. Air defense systems intercepted 105 Ukrainian aircraft type unmanned aerial vehicles. This is a long-range drones whenever it says aircraft type. And we have more details. 35 drones were intercepted over the Moscow region that was directed to strike Moscow. And this is happening just in that 5.5 hours at night in that period. 14 drones also were intercepted over the Ariol region, 12 drones over the Kursk region, 11 over the Belgorod region, 10 over the Tula, 9 over Kaluga, 7 over Voronezh, 3 over Lipetsk. Also 3 drones over the Smolensk region, 1 drone over the Bryansk region. So relatively large-scale attempt of Kyiv regime to strike deep into Russian territory and also Russian capital that took place at night and the early hours of this morning. But this is not all. As I said, dear friends, last 24 to 48 hours, Kyiv regime, with the assistance of NATO, is launching these drones without stop, seems like. And yesterday, all day media outlets were reporting about interceptions of the Ukrainian drones while they were approaching Moscow. And at evening time, we had information that air defense forces intercepted 18 drones in Moscow region, and some of the drones were intercepted actually in the territory of Moscow, according to reports that I see on Telegram channels. And this is not all. This morning, just about half an hour ago, RIA Novosti reported that air defense system shut down another 2 drones of Kiev regime that was flying towards Moscow. On some Telegram channels, I read news that airports around Moscow, at least some of the airports, introduce emergency measures doing this air alert, because air defense systems were working to neutralize drones that were launched by Kiev regime. So a significant activization, one may say, when it comes to drone attacks on Russia, especially on the capital of the Russian Federation. Probably you all noticed that there was some sort of a pause for a number of months earlier, when there was a very few attempts, even on part of Kiev regime, to strike Russian capital. But last 48 hours, things clearly change, and more drones are directed towards Moscow. Obviously, Russian Defense Ministry will react on this, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Russia will, as a retaliatory measure, if Russia will also start launching hundreds of drones on daily basis without stop, and to overwhelm Kiev regime's air defense systems, and to basically take out whatever military targets they find fit. But this is a big deal, obviously, and the public and media is talking about. There is a lot of videos on internet about interceptions of these drones. And also, dear friends, let me share with you this information that I shared yesterday evening during the evening update also, because I think this is a big deal, that advanced units of the 19th Guard Tank Division of the Central Group of Forces of the Russian Armed Forces have reached the border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. To be more precise, Russian troops actually crossed their border with Dnipropetrovsk region. And let me show you on the map this area where Russian troops entered Dnipropetrovsk region. This is the part of border with Dnipropetrovsk that Russian troops made this photo, or this one that you see on your screen. And I guess Russian armed forces are already beginning to create a ground for assault on Kiev regime's forces in Nikolaevka settlement, which is located basically right next to this part of the border. Same time, Russian troops advancing towards a border with Dnipropetrovsk region on other sectors also. And for example, today we receive information that Russian armed forces entered their Novo-Nikolaevka settlement, which is located, as you can see, dear friends, right on the border with the Dnipropetrovsk region, and clearing operation is underway. I guess tomorrow, possibly, or day after, Russian Defense Ministry will report about liberation of this settlement. Also, in general, Russian troops definitely become significantly active on the Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration area lately, especially on the southern western flanks, and soon, I guess, in many other sectors, Russian troops will be right on the border with Dnipropetrovsk, or even inside the region itself. Significant developments, I think. And while map is open, dear friends, let me also give you an update on developments on other sectors. More reports are coming in about progress of the Russian armed forces on their northern eastern flank of Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration, and slowly but surely Russian troops are neutralizing strongholds of the Kiev regime in this area. Also, Russian troops are advancing. Also, maybe they're taking time, but Russian troops are advancing in the Chisovyar area. And this morning, I read on one of the media outlets information that as a result of battles in and around Chisovyar, Kiev regime's forces left on a battlefield more than 800 their comrades. They did not even try to evacuate bodies of their killed military personnel. This type of information explains how come that whenever there is exchange of the bodies of their killed military personnel between Russian and their militaries and Kiev regime's forces, numbers are always drastically different. Russia is transferring to Kiev regime side 800-900 bodies, and Ukrainian side transfers to Russian side 40-50 bodies. This data also can be seen as an indicator of casualty rate on both side. And reports are coming in that Russian troops established control over the central parts of Chisovyer, although battles in this area still continues, of course, and Kiev regime is sending whatever troops they have in this area to somehow maintain their presence in at least on the outskirts of Chisovyer, because this city obviously has significant importance because it does opens the way towards Kramatorsk, Slavyansk agglomeration. This direction can be used as one of the ways Russian troops will advance towards these two major cities in Dnipropetrovsk, in Donetsk People's Republic. Soon, I guess Dnipropetrovsk People's Republic will be also created. So, yeah. When it comes to Kharkov region, dear friends, lately Russian troops, start become more active in Volchansk area. Quite a long time since we last time hear anything about Volchansk. There was always a positional fight between their sides, but last several days reports are coming in that Russian troops are advancing on the northern side of Volchansk, and maybe we are about to witness a sectoral scale offensive in this area. It is a clearly possibility. And when it comes to Sumy region, you already know, dear friends, I reported quite a few days ago and many other channels that Russian troops continue to create buffer zone in the Sumy region. And for example, Loknya settlement, which was part of a main supply and support line of Kiev regime's forces while they were occupying some parts of borderline area in Kursk region. This settlement, Loknya, is liberated, and Russian troops are advancing towards Yunakovka settlement, which is also at this point has a critical importance. And I guess it will take no more than a couple of weeks, and Yunakovka will be under Russian control. And I will remind you, while talking about Sumy region, that a couple of days ago, Kiev regime announced evacuation from 202 settlements in this very region, Sumy. Okay, that's been said. Let's continue with some more news. And the TASS news agency just a couple of minutes ago reported that Russian armed forces strike Patriot air defense missile system position in the Dnipropetrovsk region. No details, at least for now, being provided. But Iskander-M is we all know that this missile system is extremely effective one, and I guess either entire Patriot battery was destroyed, or most likely suffered significant damage that their system is no longer operational. Definitely good success, important success of Russian missile forces. And if Kiev regime already was struggling with their air defense, then losing Patriot, it's a big loss on part of Kiev regime, obviously. Let's continue with some more news. And Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that, Trump, president of US, Donald Trump, expressed confidence in Russia's victory in Ukraine. And why am I not surprised? Or any of us? Of course, Russia will win, and winning this in this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, globalist collective West. And it is good if Donald Trump is no longer hiding behind some false narratives, and they're saying this openly. This is definitely a good development. But anyways, let's go through some details here. US President Donald Trump shared his opinion on the outcome of their conflict in Ukraine in a conversation with European leaders and their friends. You remember when Putin had a conversation with Trump, phone conversation, afterwards, Trump made a call with Zelensky and a number of European leaders, and then information broke that these European leaders, among them Prime Minister of Italy, I believe, Meloni, President of France, Macron, Prime Minister of UK, Starmer, who else was there? Chancellor of Germany, Merz, and for whatever reason, Finnish leader, Stud or whatever his name is, was, joining this phone conversation and exchange of opinions simultaneous, in which Zelensky was also participating. And the news was that European leaders were shocked by the statements of Trump. And I said straight away, while reporting on this, that most likely a number of media outlets will soon publish information about some details of this conversation. And earlier we had a report that Trump told European leaders that Washington is against additional sanctions on Russia. And now this report that during this conversation, Trump stated that he is confident that Russia is winning this conflict. Interesting. That could shock European leaders. That could be shocking for them, because as far as I understand, they are still trying to push narrative that they can achieve some strategical defeat of Russia, and by doing so, their hope is that somehow they will keep US in this proxy war. But clearly, Washington has some different ideas, it seems like, based on at least the statements that we are hearing from a number of high-ranking US officials. Anyways, let's go through some more details. As Bloomberg reports, citing its sources, Trump expressed confidence in Russia's victory in the conflict in Ukraine during the phone conversation with European leaders. The report noticed that Trump made his interlocutors understand his point of view regarding their prospects for ending hostilities. As the Vzгляд newspaper reported earlier, Vladimir Putin expressed his commitment to finding a fair solution to the conflict in Ukraine in a conversation with Donald Trump. Okay, we all know this. Some details, at least, of Trump-Putin conversation. But this is, I think, interesting news, because seems like this rift between Washington and globalist controlled capitals in Europe is accelerating, little by little maybe, but still accelerating. And this is a good news. This is a good news because I think if US leadership, current leadership, will pull out their country from this proxy war that globalists are waging against Russia, then obviously conflict will end much faster than otherwise. And when it comes to attempts of globalist controlled capitals in Europe to keep US in this proxy war, we have this report, for example, that European leaders do not believe still that the Trump administration will stop arms exports to Kiev as long as Europe and Ukraine itself pays for them. This was reported by Wall Street Journal, and I don't know, maybe this attitude of European leaders have some basement, but yet again, if Washington is serious about de-escalating with Moscow, and I said many times before, why America First forces in US would like to de-escalate with Moscow, then probably Washington will gradually decrease its involvement in this proxy war, and maybe in a couple of days' time or a couple of weeks' time, Trump will make a decision to hold any weapon supplies to Kiev regime or intelligence sharing. I think this is a possibility. So therefore, I think European leaders are a little too optimistic in regards to US. I don't think they will succeed in keeping US further engaged in this proxy war against Russia. I think Washington has some other plans, and they have to find some ways to de-escalate with Moscow, and fast, because as I said many times in previous updates, I think US is on a trajectory towards a military confrontation with Iran, unfortunately. And therefore, to make sure that Russia will not seek revenge on US and will not use potential conflict between Iran and the US as an opportunity to achieve this revenge while sending to Iran whatever is necessary, weapons, intelligence, and so on. To make sure that Russia will not seek revenge on US, at least on the state level, let's say this way, Washington definitely needs to de-escalate with Moscow, agree on the concessions, and maybe even sign up, which may not be disclosed, by the way, for public, but Washington definitely has to agree on the concessions to compensate for all the harm that was done to Russia, Russian citizens, as a result of US's direct involvement in this proxy war against Russia. It was not even proxy war, by the way. We call it still proxy, but these countries, these NATO countries, they are directly involved. Their militaries are on the ground, and they are sending weapons in non-stop regimes. But we still call it proxy. Okay, but anyways, of course, Washington will have to agree on the concessions. And after that, some agreement might be even signed between Moscow and Washington. That may also could not be disclosed. Maybe that agreement will be classified, that two capitals are obligating each other not to support on a state level countries that are either one or either other, Washington and Moscow, are engaged against militarily. Theoretically speaking, that may be possibility. Of course, if this country is not in a strategical alliance with either of these two, US or Russia. If Washington attacks country that has a mutual defense pact with Russia, obviously that will mean attack on Russia, so Moscow will retaliate, and it works other way also, right? But some third countries that have no such strategical agreements, that's a different story. So in any ways, I think I spoke about this topic too much in previous updates, and no need to repeat myself. So US needs to de-escalate with Moscow, and therefore I think Europeans are a bit too optimistic that they will manage to keep US in. No, I don't think so. But on this topic also, dear friends, TASS News Agency is reporting that German Chancellor Merz wants to keep the US in the Ukrainian peace process, formally peace process. In reality, in this proxy war, we all understand that. So maintaining US participation in their peace process in Ukraine has become one of the foreign policy priorities for the German government under Chancellor Friedrich Merz. To this end, he proposed holding a technical meeting on this issue between European countries and the United States. Bild newspaper reports, and yet again, this is not about peace. This is about further prolongation of this proxy war. And I think at this point, at least some groups in U.S. administration, Trump, Witkoff, Tulsi Gabbard, maybe Pat Hexet also, and some others, they clearly understand what is going on, and seems like this group that is for de-escalation with Russia is seems like are winning now over the neocons, and based on statements that, for example, Marco Rubio was making last several days, who is known to be a neocon, right? One may assume that even Marco Rubio is shifting its stance and moving closer to this group that I mentioned, that is for the escalation with Russia. Maybe my reading of big picture is mistaken. I don't know, but that's how I see the things. So therefore, I don't think Merz or any other leader of European NATO member state, puppets of the globalists, basically, will succeed to keep US in this proxy war against Russia for much longer. I think maybe a couple of weeks, and US will finally walk away from this proxy war. But yet again, let's see. These globalist controlled regimes in Europe are capable of many things, including terrorist activity and all sorts of provocations. and they might resort to that in attempt to keep US ill in this proxy war. So Washington and Moscow should be careful, and the intelligence services of two countries should cooperate in a big time to make sure that globalist puppet regimes in Europe will not succeed in their attempts to divert US from current trajectory in regards to this conflict, which is moving towards the escalation with Moscow. TASS news agency is also reporting that, according to, yet again, Western media outlet, Trump rejects EU offer of unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine. This was originally reported by Wall Street Journal. And let's go through this news now. Well, that's interesting. There was some technical issue, kind of. So, White House Chief of Staff Donald Trump has rejected the proposal by the EU leaders for an unconditional ceasefire as a result of talks on Ukraine in the Vatican. This was reported by by Wall Street Journal. And if true, by the way, if true, this is one more indicator. This is one more indicator that current leadership of US is on trying at least to pull out US from this proxy war. And when it comes to upcoming second round of talks between Russian and Ukrainian delegations, reports are coming in that this meeting will take place in June in Vatican. And originally this was also reported by Wall Street Journal, and well, unfortunately, seems like Chrome browser is not really working properly. What's happening, man? Anyways, dear friends, let me continue with a little pause in the news, and said that, as many of you know, dear friends, this media project from Russia is completely independent, fully subscriber funded. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you think I am informative enough and deserve to be in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support my work and this project. You can do it through several ways. If you ask me, I would, of course, prefer if you can subscribe to my Patreon page and become a monthly supporter or Patreon for this project. But if you, for whatever reason, don't like Patreon platform, you can support through PayPal with donation, or boost the platform that you can see right now on your screen. Also, you can donate during the streams through Rumble platform, for example, or become a premium member on Rumble, premium subscriber on Rumble. That will be also, of course, a great support. Is there any other ways, sir? Crypto, by the way, you can support with the crypto too if you are good in that field. All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment, and basically under every other my videos. That's been many thanks, dear friends. Of course, many thanks to everybody who already helped and continues to support. Without this assistance, without this help, of course, this project wouldn't exist for a very, very long time now. So truly grateful for this unique opportunity to work in this field. Let's continue with more news, and we have this report that, well, according to Business Insider, U.S. Navy launched their largest ever strike from aircraft carrier. TASS news agency paid attention to this report, so let's see what this information is about. So, U.S. Navy fighter jets carried out on February 1st the largest strike in history from an aircraft carrier. Business Insider news portal reported, citing acting chief of naval operations of the U.S. Navy, James Kilby. According to the online publication. The target of the bombing was a terrorist group in Somalia, which more than 50 with more than 56,000 kilograms of munition dropped on Islamic positions. 16 Fa-18 Super Hornet fighters took part in the operation conducted from the aircraft carrier Harry Truman, which was in the Red Sea at the time. And this aircraft carrier was participating in strikes on Yemen, also on Yemeni Ansar Allah movement. The strike group, which included aircraft carrier and several other warships, deployed last fall and spent several months in the Middle East, where it served as a base for U.S. military operations against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. In February, the U.S. Africa Command reported that it had struck caves of Somalia, where one of their leaders of the Islamic State, banned in Russia and everywhere, a group network, terrorist organizations network, and the other terrorists were hiding. The White House has said Wednesday that United States has killed more than 100 militants in Somalia since the President Donald Trump took office in January. So that is the news. Headline is a quite strong, isn't it? U.S. Navy launches largest ever strike from aircraft carrier, and to be honest, I'm not sure this is a factual true information that this was the largest ever strike, because if you take a look at the numbers, dear friends, 56,000 kilograms is 56 tons, right? 16 Fa-18s were involved in this strike mission. So each was carrying like a couple of tons of munition, max. And well, is it something extraordinary, really? It's exactly the opposite. That's why I'm sharing this information, by the way, that I was expecting that these aircraft carrier strike groups are really, really something of tremendous force. But 16 Fa-18s are launched, and all they managed to do is to drop like 56 tons of missiles and bombs on certain area. Wow, I'm not impressed at all. I am not impressed at all, and I'm not at all surprised that very same aircraft strike group failed basically to achieve anything while being involved in a campaign against Houthi rebels, or Ansar Allah movement, as they officially are known, right? And during operations against Yemeni Houthis, this aircraft carrier, I believe, lost 3 Fa-18s. 3 Fa-18s, and one should keep in mind that Houthi rebels documented interception of over 20 Reaper drones, MQ-9 Reaper drones, in the same time, since their military operations have begun against them, right? So I don't know if this information makes U.S. Navy look good. In my personal opinion, it's kind of exactly the opposite, because I really was not impressed. You know, my understanding was that these strike groups, aircraft strike groups, are something of extraordinary force. But 16 planes, just 50 tons of munition, really? Excuse me. 2 strategical bombers, by the way, can carry almost twice more munitions. Anyways, let's continue. And unfortunately, this I don't know what's happening, man. But Chrome is not working properly as it should. When it comes to Houthis, by the way, I mentioned Houthi rebels. There is a report that Israeli air defense was engaged last night in an interception of yet another Houthi attack on Israel. Number of missiles and drones most likely were launched, and I shared on my Telegram channel video of that. Dear friends, I have to I have to terminate that page of Chrome and reopen it again because it clearly does not work properly. Sorry for this technical issue, but that's what happens during the live streams. Unfortunately, let me reintroduce that Chrome to the platform. Okay, it should be good now. Not really. Wow. I don't know what is happening, man, but Chrome is not working clearly. Okay. Sorry, dear friends, for this technical issue, but I have never experienced this kind of stuff when Chrome is just stalls and reacts on nothing. But I'm gonna try again, so hopefully this time it will work. So yes, a report was basically that Israeli air defense system was engaged overnight to intercept incoming projectiles from Yemen, which once again demonstrates what I just said a minute ago, that U.S. military operation against Ansar Allah movement was quite a failure, really. All they managed to do is mainly destroy civilian infrastructure, ports, airports, and that's about it. But when it comes to military capabilities of Houthi rebels, well, they are still capable to dominate in Arabian Sea, Red Sea, in terms of creating obstacles for navigation, and they are well capable to launch missiles and drones towards Israel. So their military capabilities is still there. Also, when it comes to Israel, dear friends, we have this report from RT that Israeli troops fired warning shots at the foreign diplomats. This happened yesterday, I believe. Israeli soldiers fired shots near the group of foreign diplomats visiting their Jenin refugee camp in occupied West Bank on Wednesday, prompting representatives from over 20 countries and accompanying journalists to scramble for cover. According to videos from the scene, the tour organized by the Palestinian Authority included their delegates from dozens of countries, including the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Italy, Spain, China, Japan, Mexico, Egypt, and others. No injuries were reported, but video footage showed diplomats fleeing in a panic as gunfire erupted at around 2 p.m. local time. And I believe I did share video of that on my Telegram and Twitter X page. It was a crazy scenery, of course. I mean, Israeli soldiers during the daylight just opened fire on these international delegations. That's the level of, and this kind of actions are taking place, happening because of the level of impunity with which IDF was committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. They just simply don't care. They just simply don't care. In vast majority of cases, whenever IDF commits war crimes, there is no consequences for that, and that is result. That is result. If those Israeli soldiers knew that there would be consequences for their actions, for their criminal actions, clearly this was civilian delegation, international, inner West Bank, by the way, where Israeli forces should not be to begin with, and they open fire anyways. I mean, how crazy is that? Also, information that on a topic of also Israeli-Gaza or Israeli-Palestine confrontation, last night, for the first time in 3 months, humanitarian trucks have been seen entering Gaza, where over 2 million people have been trapped in hunger. And well, maybe lately, international pressure on Netanyahu's regime is become so much so that they are trying now to sort of ease this pressure, and they allowed their humanitarian convoys to enter the Gaza, where people literally are starving. Over 2 million people, by the way. Half of the population is kids, children. But it is quite a possibility that this is just a sort of media stunt on part of this genocidal fascist Netanyahu regime. And tomorrow they might block deliveries of supplies anyways. But well, to continue, there was due to, as I said, genocidal fascist actions of the Netanyahu and his maniac associates, this criminal regime, terrorist regime in Israel. Unfortunately, worldwide, anti-Semitism is in rise. Unfortunately, because some people, at least, I would not say majority, but some people in this world are unfortunately associating this Netanyahu and other mass murderers with the Jewish people in general, and then these elements are getting engaged in some anti-Semitic behavior, which is which is bad, by the way. This is not normal. Everybody should be able to distinguish this genocidal regime of Netanyahu from Jewish people, and one should always keep in mind that outside of Israel live much more Jews than inside Israel, right? And Russian Jewish people have nothing to do with this genocidal maniac Netanyahu or his associates, right? Or Jewish people in, I don't know, in any other country, in Mexico, for God's sake, or in Japan, or in France, or you name it. So attacks on Jewish people is totally unacceptable because of the behavior of some crazies in the leadership of Israel, right? But unfortunately, yet again, some people in this world is unable, seems like, to distinguish, to make this, to understand that not all Jewish people are on the same page with these crazies, Netanyahu and the rest of the, regime there. And therefore, attacks on Jews increasing, anti-Semitism is on rise. And as a result of it, my guess is that two Israeli embassy staff was shot dead outside the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. So two Israeli embassy staff members were shot dead near the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday evening in what Israeli officials have condemned as a deprived act of anti-Semitic terrorism. The attack occurred during an event hosted by the American Jewish Committee at the museum. Authorities confirmed that two individuals connected to the Israeli embassy were gunned down just outside the venue, but their names have not yet been released. And according to reports that I see a difference, this gathering was about humanitarian aid to Gaza. That's what this gathering was about, according to reports that I see in media, on the Telegram, and so on. And this is a hate crime, obviously, right? Because these two individuals that were killed, they were not on the battlefield, they were not combatants, right? They were in Washington, and they being killed precisely because they are Jews, right? They are representatives of Israel, but still they are not combatants. And this kind of action should be condemned, by the way, worldwide. This is crazy. This should not happen. And it is truly horrifying and disappointing, let's say, that this anti-Semitism is on rise in many countries, especially in the West, by the way. Not in Russia, not here, by the way. Our Jews are safe and they're if anyone does anything crazy, then police will take care of it, and the society itself. But in Western countries, situation is different, and this is just too bad. I mean, what else can be said? We should always distinguish regime from the people, by the way. I mean, it's not that difficult, really. After all, there is so many prominent Jewish figures in this world that are heavily criticizing these terrible actions of the Netanyahu and his regime, right? Let's continue. And one of the reasons why I'm saying, by the way, that Netanyahu and his criminal associates are the menace of Jewish people is exactly this. Due to their criminal actions, some people in this world are beginning to hate, not particularly Netanyahu or the criminals that committing crimes, but all Jews, which is wrong, by the way. You cannot do this. So Netanyahu will go down in history and his freaking criminal associates as a shame for Israel and terrible criminals and their humans, if we can even call this freaking, it's a menace, by the way. I mean, Israeli people should wake up and get rid of these garbage individuals that they have in charge, man, until it's not too late. It might be already too late because of the crimes that Netanyahu and the other criminals committed, but Israeli people should wake up, man. This is crazy what is happening. And due to this attack on representatives of embassy Israel, now security measures will be ramped up all over the world where Israeli diplomatic missions are presented. This step is okay. I mean, logical. Due to actions of the Netanyahu and other criminals from his genocidal regime, no one, maybe in many countries worldwide, probably no representative of Israel feels safe. And unfortunately, even ordinary Jews that have nothing to do with Israel don't feel safe. And there are also Israel, by the way. Israel does make headlines. And Interfax is reporting that there was more reports about preparations of the Netanyahu's regime to strike Iran. So let's go through details here. Israel is preparing to launch a swift strike on Iran's nuclear facilities if Tehran and Washington takes on an Iranian nuclear program. If Tehran and Washington's talks on the Iranian nuclear program fail, Axios reports citing informed sources. Yesterday, I reported that some other Western media outlet was sharing basically the same information. Now Axios is reporting also, and possibly, even though there is no trust in Western media outlets, possibly because so many of them are reporting the same stuff, basically, probably they have some ground under these reports. As one of their portal sources stated, the Israeli military believes that the operational window for successful strike may soon close, so Israel will have to act quickly if the Iranian-American negotiations are unsuccessful. And unfortunately, chances that these meetings, talks between Iran and the US will reach deadlock and will fail to reach any agreement is quite high because of their unrealistic demands from US. At least that's how situation have been seen in many countries worldwide, and that's how Iran itself is seeing demands of Washington, especially when it comes to topic of enrichment of uranium. But I think even bigger problem, as I said many times, is that Tehran just cannot trust US. That is a big deal. Tehran probably fears that if they will even agree to dismantle infrastructure for enrichment of uranium if, let's say, friendly nations, Russia, China, India, will guarantee that they're gonna, be there for them to provide Iran's nuclear reactors with the fuel. Probably Tehran afraid that Washington will come up with some other demands after that. For example, to dismantle entirely nuclear program, and such a call already was made by a number of officials in US, right? And therefore, because of the absence of trust in US, Tehran may just find itself in a situation when they just cannot compromise on nothing, because no matter how far they will go in these compromises, probably they feel that US is not honest in these talks, and will constantly increase demands until they will finally withdraw from the talks, and then will resolve to military action. So therefore, it is on US now, I think, to basically take some compromising steps if Trump and his inner circle are really serious about de-escalating with Iran. And after all, they can be find some mechanisms that Iran will not enrich uranium more than it needed for nuclear reactors. Clearly, they can be found some mechanisms that are not just IAEA, let's say, which is already controlled by US, but also directly US specialists will be engaged in the monitoring of these facilities where centrifuges are located, to make sure that Iran is enriching uranium only on the levels that are necessary for nuclear fuel to be created. Will US agree on that? I don't think so. But we have reported that US-Iran talks will take place in Rome on Friday, this Friday. This was reported by Foreign Minister of Oman. Oman is a mediator in these talks. So let's see what is going to happen. But I'm afraid as time goes by, US is getting trapped more and more significantly in this trajectory of direct strike with direct military hostility with Iran, which is going to be devastating for Middle East and rest of the world, including US, of course. Let's see, maybe Trump and his inner circle will realize what is happening. Maybe they will finally come to their senses and acknowledge that Iran is not the threat for US and never was. And after all, it's not US's business, really, to put its nose everywhere in this world. Just walk away. Huh? Take care of yourself, for God's sake. Do not create more problems for nobody. You already done enough bad in this world. I'm talking about US and US political class. Anyways, let's continue, dear friends. Let's see how these talks on Friday will go down. But unfortunately, I'm not really optimistic on that. And there are reports that Israel is getting to strike on Iran is definitely something that we should all worry about, because Netanyahu's regime may go ahead and strike Iran, and after Iran's inevitable retaliation, they may try to provoke US to get engaged in this war with Iran. I mean, there is a risk. There is a risk, by the way. So if US is serious about the escalation, then they should demonstrate that. Until now, I did not see anything from US. Only demands that are not serious, really. And also, US definitely has to try somehow to regain trust, at least little bit. And when it comes to topic of nuclear energy, civilian nuclear energy, I will share with you this report. I shared this information yesterday also during the evening news, but I think it is important news. And in case some members of our community did not watch that yesterday's evening news, and many did not, then Well, let's share it now that Rosatom, Russian corporation that works, is a leading player in a field of civilian nuclear energy. So Rosatom's revenues from projects abroad totaled 18 billion US dollars in 2024, according to its CEO. So revenues of Rosatom from the projects abroad totaled 18 billion in 2024, which includes approximately 20% or about 4 billion US dollars coming from unfriendly countries. General Director of the State Nuclear Corporation, Alexander Likhachov, stated, and dear friends, you guessed from which country being mentioned it was included in this statement of in this phrase of non-friendly countries. First of all, US, of course. First of all, US. US is still buys Russian uranium, by the way, for its civilian nuclear program. And I guess from this 4 billion that Rosatom received from unfriendly countries, most of it came from US. But numbers are quite impressive, isn't it? Numbers are quite impressive that in 2024 Rosatom made 18 billion, which is great news. So this is a leading company, by the way, in this world when it comes to civilian nuclear energy, and the countries are queuing in to get to Rosatom and to sign up a contract for nuclear power plants. But yet again, Rosatom's capabilities are not unlimited. Currently, Rosatom is building nuclear power plants in quite a number of countries, and once certain projects will finish, I guess new countries will have opportunity to also sign up for sign up contract with this corporation. And I will end this update, dear friends, on this news that India buys record volume of Russian oil in May, defying Western pressure. India ramped up its imports of Russian crude in May, purchasing nearly 1.8 million barrels per day, the highest level in the past 10 months, Reuters reports. Refineries in India have already placed orders for more than 10 cargoes of Russian oil for June delivery, signaling that their high-volume purchases will likely continue into July. This surge comes as Ukraine continues to lobby for secondary sanctions on buyers of Russian oil, move that would target India directly. And it's not just Kyiv regime, by the way, but also globalist control regimes in Europe that are very keen to introduce these secondary sanctions, but they want US to do this first, right? Because I don't think they are in a position to confront China and India, for example, or Turkey for that matter, this openly. So they want US to lead the charge, but seems like Washington has some different plans, at least under current administration. So interesting news also, isn't it, that India, as a strategical partner of the Russian Federation, continues to demonstrate its partnership, and despite the Western pressure, does business with Russia as usual, and even increases ties with Russia, which is great, by the way. You know my take on India. I think India is a number one strategical partner of Russia on the world stage, and that's it. And it will stay this way, I hope, forever. It's necessary for both countries and for world stability. Okay, I guess this is it for now, dear friends. When it comes to news segment, and well, as I said, dear friends, in the beginning, I received question from a member of our Patreon community, and I will highlight now this question. Sorry, this is not that. I guess I have to add there again. That's it. So, question is from Yaroslav Pelicek. What do you think about Rafale, this is a French fighter jet, of course, and it's possible losses in a recent conflict between India and Pakistan. Are Chinese fighters up? I guess that means better. Are Chinese missiles PL-15 better? Do Chinese have any newer missile than PL-15? Is Rafale trash? Well, quite a few questions here, and well, first of all, let's make it clear that Rafale is not trash. Rafale is one of their best fourth-generation fighter jets, by the way, based on all information that is available in open sources. Rafale is very well capable fourth generation, fourth plus, I will say, generation fighter jet, and if anyone says otherwise, by the way, it's just I don't know. Think whatever you want, but I don't think Rafale is a trash. In my personal opinion, if Russian Su-35 is better fighter jet as a fourth generation, also fourth plus fighter jet, but Rafale is good. Rafale is good plane. When it comes to performance of Rafale, Indian side share their limited information, and based on that limited information, well, what we can say is that Indian Air Force in general, not just Rafale, but also Su-30s, by the way, that were launching BrahMos missiles, for example, they did quite okay. They did quite okay because there is a satellite images, isn't it? We don't have to guess. There is a satellite images on internet with the confirmation of direct strikes on our military infrastructure of the terrorist infrastructure and also military infrastructure of the Pakistan, right? So in my personal opinion, Su-30s that were involved in these operations when they were striking targets in Pakistan that were with BrahMos missiles, they performed quite okay, good, and Rafales, I guess, also. And in my personal opinion, only one Rafale was lost during this operation, based on video and photo footage that is available. Not 3 or 5 as Pakistan claims. Only one Rafale potentially was lost, and even that Rafale, according to some reports, was lost after it finished. It launched its missiles after it conducted its operation, and while this plane was going back to its base, that's when missile catch up with it, right? This is according to reports, by the way. Yet again, officially, we have very little news on that. So therefore, I would not say, I really doubt that Chinese jets, Chinese fourth generation jets are better than Russian Su-30 that India has, or the French Rafale that is also in India's Air Force. And when it comes to missiles, by the way, all modern missiles are quite sophisticated enough. It's not just Chinese missiles that are basically quite often copies of their either Russian missiles or their Western missiles, right? So therefore, I mean, how you can say the Chinese missile, which is a copy of either Russian or Western missile, is better than original? I mean, is it even possible? Theoretically, maybe, but in reality, I don't think so. But yeah, that is my answer. Don't believe if anyone says that Rafale is a trasher. I'm not big fan of French military-industrial complex, obviously, especially now. But when French leadership is this aggressive towards Russia. But let's be real here. Rafale is a good plane, and that's it. I think India. I think India is okay with performance of these planes, and that is the answer. If India is happy with the performance of these planes, then and what we can add to that, right? This is my answer, and there was no more questions, as I already said, dear friends. There was no more questions from any of the support platform. There was no super chat on Rumble too. So therefore, I will end this update now, dear friends, and I will just remind you that if you will have a question, if you want to highlight any question or the topic during the streams after new segment, you can send your question and the comment with little donation through either a PayPal platform or Boosty platform, or if you are a member of our community on Patreon and Boosty, then you just write me a question. That will be enough, and of course I will react on it. This is it for now, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, and before I go, let me remind you that this evening at 7 o'clock Moscow time, I will have evening news program, live stream also, and I hope you will manage to join that live stream. I will prepare for that program all the latest reports that Russian media and public will pay attention to during the day today. This is it for now. Thank you all, and have a great day. Take care.